Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the recess meeting of the Will County Board, November 16, 2017. We will call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand. County Board Member Ken Harris will lead us in the pledge and then introduce the clergy for this morning.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our prayer ministry leader, Dondretta Strong. She was a previous member of Living Water Community Church in Bolingbrook and is a current member of Victory Cathedral Worship Center in Bolingbrook. She is married to Sinatra Strong, and they have a son and a daughter. She has been a resident of Will County since 1989. Ms. Strong, you may come up.
Amen. Good morning. Thank you very much for this invitation. If we could bow our heads for prayer, please. Most heavenly and gracious Father, we thank you for all of your provisions, especially this time of season when we are to give thanks. As this governing body assemblies, let peace and hope reside in decision-making, as well as fulfillment and satisfaction. We pray for all of our county executives, the administrators, the representatives, our county agencies. Be the refuge and strength of all of your people in need in this county, in the outlying county, and in this community. We ask that you provide sources and resources. We thank you already for the budgetary decisions that have been made. We thank you for the accommodations that will be made through that budget for the community. We believe you for the proper allocation and distribution. In your name we pray, amen.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mayor? Here. Brooks? Here. Ogala? Here. Summers? Here. Singer? Here. Moran? Here. Rice? Here. Harris? Here. Trainier? Here. Benefield? Here. Fritz? Yes. Gould? Here. Militello? Here. Balich? Here. Frizzalone? Here. Winfrey? Here. Parker? Here. Staley Ferry? Here. Dollinger? Here. Markham? Here. Hart? Tuminello? Weigel? Ferry, Colitis, and Mustis. Thank you.
26 present.
We have a quorum. Entertain a motion to place on file the certificate of publication. Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Mr. Ferry. Any questions? Any questions? Motion call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mayor? Brooks? Yes. Ogala? Yes. Summers? Yes. Singer? Yes. Moran? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris? Yes. Trainier? Yes. Benefield? Yes. Fritz? Yes. Gould? Yes. Militello? Yes. Balich? Yes. Frizzalone? Yes. Winfrey? Yes. Parker? Yes. Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Yes. Markham? Yes. Hart? Yes. Tuminello? Yes. Weigel? Yes. Ferry? Yes. Colitis? Yes. And Mustis. Yes. Thank you.
26 affirmative. Motion has carried. Entertain the motion to approve the minutes of the recess meeting of October 19, 2017. Moved by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Militello. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Summers, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Motion to approve the minutes of the executive session of October 19, 2017. Moved by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Tuminello. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Dollinger, second by Mr. Balich. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Madam Clerk, would you please acknowledge the elected officials and media that's present this morning?
Sure. Auditor Jeffrey Blackburn, County Clerk Nancy Schultz Foods, County Executive Larry Walsh, Recorder of Deeds Karen Stucco.
Mr. Glasgow would like to apologize for not being here. His son is graduating from PTI this morning. His name is Cody Columbus. He will be a Joliet police officer upon graduation.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
And we do have the media here. We have Farmers Weekly Review, Nick Ryer, Southtown Susan Lafferty, and Alex Ortiz with Herald News, and Times Weekly Brock Stein. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Are you done, Tim?
Rearranging furniture.
Next up, honorary resolutions, proclamations. If County Board Member Lori Summers would please come to the podium and has a recognition on suicide prevention.
Good morning. Well, today is a very good day. Standing beside me is Kayla Ducius. She is probably one of the strongest mothers and women that I've ever known in my life. So this proclamation is very important to her and her family. She lost her Nikita and has been a voice ever since. She took her grief and did something good with it. So I'm going to read the proclamation. We are recognizing September as Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, whereas suicide is one of the most disruptive and tragic events a family and a community can experience. With more than 1,363 lives expected to be lost to suicide in Illinois in 2017, and whereas suicide is the 11th leading cause of all deaths in Illinois, and the number one leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 14, the third leading cause among people aged 15 to 24, and the fourth leading cause among people aged 35 to 54. And whereas on average in the state of Illinois, one person dies by suicide every 6 hours, and whereas nearly twice as many people die by suicide in Illinois annually than by homicide, and whereas veterans and active duty military personnel face a disproportionate risk as compared to the general population, with more dying from suicide than combat. An average of 22 veterans commit suicide every day in the United States, and whereas the public awareness of this terrifying problem is key to preventing further suffering and loss of life, and the risk for human self-destruction can be reduced through awareness, education, and treatment. And as the highest risk for suicide is among the survivors of those who died by suicide or those who have attempted suicide. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive hereby recognize September as Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. Be it further proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive urge citizens to learn and understand the signs of suicide and to work to prevent suicide and to raise awareness and tolerance around all people affected by this tragedy, dated the 16th day of November, 2017.
So moved by Ms. Summers, second by Mr. Mayor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary.
Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Hi. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you, Executive Walsh and the board members, for recognizing September as Suicide Prevention Month. And I want to let you know that it's been 6.5 years since we lost our son. It was a horrific discovery when I came home one day to find him. It's deeply affected my personal mental health, and the ripple effect has touched our community, family, friends, and beyond. I want to stress the importance of mental health education. This is a mental health issue, and we need to bring that to everyone's attention. People need to take the time to take a mental health first aid response class. They are being offered. There's so much to be learned there. We need to treat mental health the same as we do physical health. We have started, I hit the ground running, literally. Our son died in May 3rd of 2011, and in July I was knocking on the doors in the school and asking what can we do. We were blindsided by this. Our young man was 20 years old. I do believe at this time, because of what I've learned, is that he was struggling with an undiagnosed mental health issue, specifically depression. He was a good kid, going to school, working 2 part-time jobs. He would have been graduating college in 6 months. And I didn't know the things that I know now. And I wish that I had known what I've learned about mental health, because the signs were there. We just didn't know what it was. So we've taken great steps within our community. Our little town of Beecher, it's way out there by the Indiana line. You know, one of the greatest complaints that I've received from families is that it's so hard to get resources for their children. And it's not just about children. This affects everyone. Anyone that has a brain has mental health. You have a state of mind. And we need to be treating that organ of the body, the brain, the same as we do the heart, the lungs, the kidneys. This is a health issue. So I won't continue to go on too much. I just want you all to know that this is an issue that we need to come together on. It's a bipartisan issue. If we can bring it to the table and take steps to resolve the struggles that people are having and getting the care that they need. Thank you for your time.
Next up, County Board, Don Moran will read a proclamation recognizing the new partnership between the Community Service Council of Will County and the Spanish Community Center. Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Thank you to the Community Service Council of Northern Will County, the Spanish Community Center, whose members are here today. This proclamation reads as such. Whereas since 1973, the Community Service Council of Northern Will County has been offering a variety of counseling services such as clinical, marriage, domestic violence, anger management to the residents of Northern Will County, and whereas since 1969, the Spanish Community Center has been offering a variety of wraparound services in English and Spanish, such as clothing and furniture vouchers, IDHS applications and renewals, employment services, weekly food pantry, housing counseling, and resource and referral, and whereas the CSC is certified by the Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide housing counseling at no cost, primarily in the areas of mortgage default and rental evictions, and whereas the CSC has partnered with the Spanish Community Center to offer these services to the residents in Joliet, and Whereas, since the program's inception, the CSC has assisted more than 4,000 families find new homes. In 2016, the Spanish Community Center assisted 95 families and was a top performer of bilingual housing counseling in the state of Illinois as a part of the Latino Policy Forum Operation Help. By joining together, the agencies will be able to offer services to more residents of Will County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do hereby recognize this important partnership between the CSC and the Spanish Community Center as a vital connection to safe, affordable housing in Will County. Be it further resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive express their appreciation to the CSC and Spanish Community Center for their assistance to Will County residents in need. And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Moran, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. We want to thank Mr. Kalnicki, Bob, did a great job, and wish the best of luck working with our Spanish Center here in Joliet. So good luck to you. All resolutions approved at the October 19, 2017 County Board meeting have been signed by the County Executive. Moving on to new business, our first committee, Land Use and Development. Mr. Weigel, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tom.
First off is the public hearing for land use cases. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Singer. Madam Clerk, will please call the roll.
Sure. Mayor? Brooks? Yes. O'Gala? Yes. Summers? Yes. Singer? Yes. Moran? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris? Yes. Trainier? Yes. Benefield? Yes. Fritz? Yes. Gould? Yes. Militello? Yes. Balich? Yes. Frizzalone? Yes. Winfrey? Yes. Parker? Yes. Staley Ferry? Yes. Dollinger? Yes. Markham? Yes. Hart? Tumanello, yes. Weigel,
Yes.
Ferry, yes. Carlitis, yes. And Mustis.
Yes.
Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Please be advised, absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once this land use public hearing is closed. We have 3 cases to hear this morning. Case ZC 17-036. ZC 17-039, ZC 17-045. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on any of these zoning cases? Anyone from the public wishing to address any one of these 3 zoning cases? Anyone wishing to speak? Mr. Weigel?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Balich. Call the roll, please,
Sure.
ma'am.
Mayor? Brooks?
Yes.
O'Gala?
Yes.
Summers? Yes. Singer? Yes. Moran? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris? Yes. Trainier? Yes. Benefield? Yes. Fritz? Gould? Yes. Militello? Yes. Balich? Yes. Frizzalone? Yes. Winfrey? Yes. Parker? Yes. Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Yes. Markham? Yes. Hart? Yes. Tumanello? Yes. Weigel?
Yes.
Ferry? Yes. Carlitis? Yes. And Mustis.
24 affirmative.
24 affirmative. Public hearing has been closed. Mr. Weigel, please continue.
Okay, our first case, 17-036, was tabled at the Land Use Committee. So I'd like to remove it from the agenda. I'll make a motion to remove it from the agenda.
Moved by Mr. Weigel.
Second.
Second by Ms. O'Gala. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Militello. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary motion has carried.
Our second case, 17-039, is a special use permit for a truck terminal in Joliet Township on Manhattan Road. The committee recommends approval with 7 conditions, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Summers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Did you ask Mayor and...
Mr. Mayor
And Staley
up
Ferry.
and Ms. Staley Ferry?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Our next case, 17045, is a special use permit for sports and recreation in Wheatland Township, Naperville, Illinois. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Hart, second by Ms. Dollinger. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 2 resolutions. One concerns street names and street signs. We need to have a public hearing concerning that. I'll make a motion to have go into public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr.
Gould.
Tumanello. Either way.
We got it.
Madam
I'll
Clerk,
call it.
call the roll.
Mayor? Brooks? Ogala? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trenier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone? Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel?
Yes.
Ferry? Colitis? And Mustis. Great.
26 affirmative.
26 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Mr. Weigel?
This was brought to us by the 911 center. Apparently, there's some confusion about street numbering or numbering on houses and mailboxes, and they'd like to have a uniform numbering system with block numbers, 6-inch numbers on a house, 3-inch numbers on a mailbox. This purpose of the thing, some people have script numbers and they're easy or not easy to see, so they want a uniform numbering system.
Any discussion? Any questions? Any discussion? Any comments? Ms. Ogala?
So my question is, some people have numbers on their homes right now. What will happen with those that have it like in, it's in brick and it's in mortar on their homes? If that doesn't meet, what's the plan for that?
That would be, any future construction would have to fall under the new guidelines. If you have existing ones, they can be maintained as they are.
Okay, I just wanted everyone to know that.
Good question. Any other comments? Any other comments?
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Balich. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
I got it. Mayor? Brooks? Ogala? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trenier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone? Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel?
Yes.
Ferry? Colitis? And Mustis. Thank you.
26 affirmative.
26 affirmative. We are out of public hearing. Mr. Weigel, please continue.
Okay, I make a motion to approve Resolution 17291, amending Chapter 162 of the Will County Code of Ordinances for street naming and street signs, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Fritz. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Benefield, second by Ms. Ogala. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
I have Resolution 17292, requesting extension of a special use permit, 6294 MS. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
I might mention that the first item that we removed from the agenda was for a solar farm, which we do not have any in Will County at this time. There were a lot of questions by the committee. We recommended that we have a committee of the whole to bring everybody up to speed concerning this, and that'll be at a future date. We'll set that. Our next meeting is December 12th at 10:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Before we go on, I'd like to make an announcement. We have some very special visitors with us today. I am pleased to welcome officials from the Shenzhen International Construction and Management Delegation from Shenzhen Province in China. They are here to learn more about American democracy and the many attributes of Will County. We have welcomed several delegations from China over the years, and we are always proud to showcase our county. John Grilling from the CED will be escorting our visitors on a tour of the county's intermodal systems following our meeting. Would you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you very much. Next up, Finance Committee, Mr. Frizzalone, Chairman.
Good morning, Will County.
Good morning, Mike.
Thank you. So we have a little bit of business today. First up, we have some reports to place on file. I have a report from the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of August 2017 to be $1,688,205.72. The RTA tax received is $1,981,328.75 for a total of $3,669,534.47. I also have the monthly treasurer report dated September 30th, 2017 from Will County Treasurer Steve Weber. And I'd like to make a motion to put these two reports on file.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Singer. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next up, I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing on our 2018 annual budget.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Trainier. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sure. Mayor? Brooks? Ogalla? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trainier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel? Ferry? Colitis? And Mustis.
26 affirmative.
26 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Mr. Frizzalone, please continue.
All right, John, I make a little statement right now about the budget, and then when we come out of public hearing, then we'll make the motion to vote on it. The proposed budget, if you were at Finance Committee, was introduced 2 weeks ago. It was updated, tweaked just a touch, and online for the last several days has been the current budget, so hopefully everyone has a chance to look at it. So the proposed changes reflect a reduction in the corporate revenue in the amount of $887,339. The $887,000 is on top of the $1.6 million reduction of revenues due to the state balancing its budget on the backs of local governments. For the last several years, many of my fellow county board members have questioned why we pass a budget that does not reflect the true cost of overtime and other personnel costs. What everyone needs to understand is everything is being taken from one pot of money. So in order to give more to one area, we have to take something away from another. So these recommended changes reflect an increase in the sheriff's overtime of $1.3 million above what was proposed in September. Some of this is being accomplished due to the reductions in cost at the ADF as the new bond reform legislation kicks in, which will reduce our ADF population. We'll continue to work with the sheriff and the staff to assist in making hard decisions and necessary sacrifices. At our soon-to-be-announced Committee of the Whole, we'll be seeing a presentation from the Sheriff's Department on how we can work to reduce overtime over the next several years. Included in this presentation will be the Sheriff agreeing to move forward with a plan to close one of the 6 pods. We must continue to assess our expenses and adjust our priorities accordingly. This is reflected in all of our travel, meals, and lodging line items. These line items were cut by 50% or more in every county department. But based upon the direction of Speaker Mustas, our travel policy is being sent through committee and adjustments will need to be made. With that being said, our Assistant State's Attorney has advised us that many of our elected officials do not have to adhere to the county board's travel policy. But today I ask each of our countywide elected officials to seriously assess all travel plans and to make cuts and adjustments to save money wherever they can. We recently completed renovating Sunny Hill Nursing Home. This endeavor took 12 long years, closing one pod at a time in order to minimize disruption of our residents' day-to-day lives. We also listened to the recommendations of management and wishes of our residents and are proud of our private single occupancy rooms. With these new changes and reduction of our census, we now have a waiting list. And many of the budget reductions listed here for Sunny Hill will be the first of several years of reductions as we work closely with management to achieve the necessary staffing, commodity, and contractual levels that correspond with our reduced census of 156 residents. You will also notice many reallocations and reductions in the numerous commodity and janitorial supply items. This is a continued effort to seek efficiencies across all of our county departments. Earlier this year, we brought on our new Facility Management Director, Joe Van Essen, to assist in this endeavor. So over the next several years, we'll work with the Sheriff, the Chief Judge, and our Board of Health to hopefully begin to cross-train and consolidate all of our maintenance and janitorial staff. With the new Sheriff's Complex set to open next month, and the plans for the new county courthouse and health department complex well underway, we must achieve greater efficiencies in order to meet our growing debt obligations. The budget, as I mentioned earlier, is not just about cuts, but about reallocations. We have added $357,000 to the health department levy to provide the vital services our communities need. They will also benefit from additional fees voted on by this board at last month's meeting. We have also added additional appropriations for the Auditor Duffy Blackburn's office for a part-time person and additional funds for another full-time deputy coroner in our coroner Pat O'Neill's office. These 2 positions were necessary to allow them to handle the additional workload that they are experiencing. Other savings were found by eliminating positions that remained vacant for all year. I've also recommended in this budget that we fund our accelerated IMRF payments by an additional $450,000, bringing the total to $1.1 million. This step allows us to recognize all of our liabilities and strives to fund them in their entirety. And we're also recommending an increase to the contingency for County Board in the amount of $270,000, bringing the total to $970,000. Several board members had asked, what does this money go to? And spreadsheets were provided several weeks ago as to where all the different items come that go into contingency. And a few people have asked staff if any of these reductions and reallocations affect our cash reserve policy or our debt service obligations. The answer is they do not. Our cash reserve policy remains between 22 and 26%, and all of our debt service obligations are met. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Any questions?
Can I make a motion to close public hearing?
Move. Mr. Brooks.
As you mentioned, Mr. Finance Chair, I don't know if I direct the question to you or you, Mr. Executive, okay? There were some changes made that's posted over the last few days that you mentioned, and it was quite a few small changes, I should add. Just didn't give us a whole lot of time to really take a look at it and address it. But my question is this. Out of the $1 million deficit, I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to see, I don't know if I saw it or not, where that $1 million deficit, has that been reduced?
There's no deficit. So originally, when we did the levy, we decided that we were not going to take the additional $1 million in
Right,
CPI.
right,
So we had to reduce our overall budget.
right.
However, in the meantime, our new construction has gone up, you know, every day we keep
Yeah.
getting a little. So we really only had to reduce it by $887,000 to be
And
even
300,
with
right.
new
I see
construction.
that.
So
I see
that's,
that.
that's where that difference.
Oh, I see,
So
okay.
that's kind of the million.
Okay.
It's
And
the-
and then the second part of the question is, the closing of 6 jail pods will cut 50%? Is that what you said?
No, what we are shooting for is reducing our overtime by 50% over the next several
I
years.
see.
We're
Okay.
going to see a plan by the sheriff's department at our next, as soon as the speaker calls a committee of the whole on this, they have a
Okay,
presentation
okay.
prepared for us on how adding additional people, how closing a pod
Right.
will allow us to reduce our overtime by 50%.
And
About
that, there was a law that goes in effect in January, I believe it is, that the
Right.
governor signed. Now, is that what you're basing this on?
Yes, so if you looked at the ADF reductions,
Right,
we assume that we could get to 200 people less in the jail based on this reduction, but we only budgeted for about 75 to 100 less.
Okay.
So we have to ramp up. By the end of the year, it may be even better.
Okay.
But that's where those reductions in ADF costs came from. All of that money was moved into overtime for the time being. Once the sheriff makes his presentation, and hopefully if we can put this next plan into effect, we'll
Then
start
it-
reducing overtime overall.
I got you. All right. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Ogala?
Comment on something that I think is really important, and both County Board Member Lori Summers and her friend from Beecher, Kayla, had concerns about. And earlier this year, I worked with Sue Olenek, our Executive Director from the Will County Health Department, as she was very concerned that we were going to be short on dollars due to the state not providing us with different grant dollars, and that there was a big possibility of having cuts in our behavioral and mental health. So together, collectively, as a board, we worked to make sure that we looked at every line item in the budget, and Mike took something from here and something from there to make sure that we funded that very important thing. And I've learned all that importance from Sue and, of course, Dr. Kathleen Burke, that we need to make sure that that is covered in our budget, so that, and my Public Health and Safety Committee, which is an awesome committee with a lot of talented people in that area, and we really felt it was so important to make sure that that was budgeted. So a little bit from each department was cut so that we can make sure that the health department has the funds necessary so that we can provide mental and behavioral health. I just want everyone to know why we did that. And, you know, I talked with Mike about it, and I said, Mike, do your magic, and he did, so.
And Judy, when you take the money that we are moving over to the health department and the additional fees, the total dollar amount is going to come close to $600,000 more for the health department with fees and with the additional levy that we gave them, so.
So I just want to thank everyone who helped work on that and make sure that we were able to have that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mustis?
I would like to address when statements are made about $1 million deficit or $1 million cut, I think that is misleading. The proposal from the executive's office was to tax an additional $1 million in real estate taxes and spend an additional $1 million above and beyond the prior year's budget. So when the board received the executive's budget, you know, we looked at it and said, well, we're not going to increase the real estate taxes by an additional $1 million, even though we increased them because we took the new construction. So in essence, the real estate taxes do go up, but everybody pays a little bit less because it's a bigger pool of taxpayers. So the rates are going down even more than they would have under the executive branch. So when you say there's $1 million deficit, from what? Certainly not from the prior budget. It's from a proposal from the executive branch on a budget. So, you know, I kind of object to the idea, or trying to put out there that somehow the budget was cut. The budget was not cut. This budget spends it spends has additional funds in it, or additional spending from the prior year. You know, if I propose to spend $5 million more, would you, and you say, well, you can't do that, would you say you cut it? So, you know, the public should understand that nothing was cut. Things were reallocated where we felt resources needed to go. And I think this budget is much more transparent than it has been in the past. It shows perhaps the real cost of IMRF. It shows the real cost to what overtime is, because now it's in a budget we hope, which is a more appropriate appropriation. So, you know, nothing was ever cut. It was cut from a proposed budget of additional spending that the executive's office put forward. So let's make that clear. What additional taxation, I might say. So I think that should be made clear to the public. Thank you.
Any other comments from Mr. Ballich?
Usually, Mr. Mooses helps me out by using different language to say something, so this time I'm going to help Jim. The bottom line is that just because the government can raise your taxes to the max or up whatever number you want to name, doesn't mean you have to. So what Jim is saying is that we didn't take the max, but that isn't actually a cut in dollars. What Herb is saying is that we should have took all of it, and by taking all of it, by not taking all of it, we took a tax decrease. So I think that's got to be real clear, that just because they can get all that money and you don't take it, doesn't mean it's a decrease.
I don't think you were that clear.
Well, I thought I was clear, so forget about it.
You want to give everybody? I'm going, if it's okay, if I control the meeting, I want to get, yes, sir, I know there's somebody from the public. I'm getting all the county board members first, okay? Now, Ms. Summers?
I am just going to be very brief and say thank you to Rashawn and Melissa because they started working on this way before, you know, any of us were really involved. I would like to see us getting more involved from the get-go on this. I think that that's extremely important, but those two women worked very hard on this, and hats off to them. Thank you.
Anybody else? County board members? Anybody else? Mr. Benefield.
You know, I arrived at the county board in 2014, and so I've been here for just a few years and for a few budgets. And my experience with this particular budget is completely in opposition to Ms. Summers' statement. I believe that this was very transparent. I thought the committee did a great job on coming back to the individuals. Say that again?
Thank you to two staff members.
Oh, I thought that she said that we weren't transparent during the budget. I apologize, Ms. Summers. Thank you.
Any other? Ms. Trainier?
I, too, want to thank the staff. I really appreciate the hard work that they do. And I do think during my 8+ years on this board, we are getting better at being more transparent about the real cost of what we are doing with the taxpayer money. But I still believe we aren't quite there yet, because we are passing and approving and signing labor agreements and not putting those exact dollars into the budget. And we are expecting every department to live by that budget, but we're not giving them the actual money that we have said that we're going to pay for salaries. So we're getting close. We're getting close. We're putting money in overtime again, and I think that's great. But I do think we have to be honest with the salary line items, and maybe next time, sort of like the Cubs thing. Maybe next year.
Anyone, thank you. Anyone else from the, Mr. Mayor?
I just want to clarify, just because someone gets a raise doesn't mean that we necessarily increase the appropriations. And people understand that that is a practice that we've been doing here for quite a while. That we come in with a budget, and in fact, we had one department that I would like to have some conversation about where we gave them $70,000 because they were anticipating an employee from the state. They never got it for 2 years, and all of a sudden, they're spending $140,000. I'd like to know where that money is, because that is wrong. And so just because we go in and negotiate raises, we go in and take a look at this budget, we look at the total expense, and we say, this is what we're appropriating. And people spend what they spend within the system. If they can't spend any more. And we're not giving them less money for their employees. Their employees are getting paid every day, every week, every month. People are getting paid. So somehow if they find a way to do it, and I'm not going to vote for more money just because we negotiated a contract if they can live within those means, because that's our job.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone from the general public that wishes to make a comment? Come forward, please. No, Mike, come to the podium, please.
My name is Rachel Ventura. I live at 617 North Rainer. I want to clarify on several of these full-time salaries, specifically like the mental health that I know you guys discussed last week. There is a reduction in these salaries. So if there are raises or no raises, there would at least be a line item that would be the same. So are you saying that these decreases in these is because of projected amounts
Is that the
and
health,
not?
you're talking about the health department?
Well, there's several of them, but yeah, let's look at mental health. Line item 167.
We don't do the health department budget. That's the health department. You would
Okay,
have to go
thank
to the
you.
health department board.
So the full-time salaries, then, are their salaries getting cut, or are you cutting positions, and if so, how many?
I'm going to let Sue Olenek speak to that, but there's a grant. I think I know exactly the line you're referring to, and I can have her address that. ACH?
Yeah, the ACH.
Sue, please come down.
I don't have anything in front of me that tells me specifically. Yes, the ACS
Sue, podium, please.
The ACS program is a program, it's a grant that was provided to us several years ago with the closing of Tinley Park Mental Health Center. The grant, like many grants that we have, are very specific in their deliverables, and if you can no longer meet the deliverables of that grant, you can't take the money, because you just can't do that. So many of the programs that we've developed over the last few years and the closure of Tinley Park, the work that we now do, which is all outpatient at the health department, we can no longer spend the money as the grant allows. We can spend some of it, about $190,000, but we can't spend that money exactly how the grant allows, so we can't take that grant anymore. It was in the amount of $654,000 and change, and we can now only spend about $190,000. So there's
salaries were cut, or their jobs were cut?
There were positions that were cut in 2016 in relation to that. There were no positions cut in 2017. However, we do have positions in behavioral health that are in the budget, but they are not being filled right now. And then we also have one position in the behavioral health budget at the health department for 2018 that's in there, but it's not funded.
Okay, so people aren't actually losing their jobs?
No, they are not. We did that in 15 and 16.
And that's true for 162 on the environmental?
Correct.
Salaries as well?
Yes, correct. There's no, one of the things that I think might be part of what you're looking at is in fiscal year 2017, the health department as a whole, we funded all of our salaries and our fringe at 100%. in the 2018 budget, we chose to fund all of those, the salaries, part-time, full-time, temp, fringe, at 97%. So the dollar amount in the personnel side went down, but we didn't lose any positions. So we're actually funding it. So through attrition, holding positions that are vacant, let's say somebody resigns, we don't fill that position right away. We may wait 3 months and you know, get some of those dollars accumulating. So that's how we accomplished it. But no positions are going.
Okay, and then my last point was, in the future, it might be helpful to have actuals from the year before in a column as well to help show the cuts and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ogala, comment?
So I just want to point out that I do not know who the speaker was, because I don't think she said who she was.
Yes,
But
she
she
did.
I didn't hear her
Yes.
name. Okay. One thing I did also want to say is what happens when we get a grant. So right now there isn't a grant for something that might be not happening today, but it ends up happening sometime in the middle of next year. The state decides or the federal government decides it's important to put dollars towards that issue. And so what they do is they come up with tax dollars, they put it towards a grant, and then sometimes our health department or our position for Dr. Kathleen Burke, we didn't have somebody for opioid abuse before because there wasn't that going on to the point that it was recognized as an emergency situation. So then the federal government or state government comes up with a plan that this is an issue we need to address. We need to provide tax dollars for that. So we were lucky in getting tax dollars to hire Dr. Kathleen Burke for the opioid issue that we have going on. But when you get a grant, what happens is there's so much money available and you have to hire somebody to help administer that grant. And once there are no more grant dollars for that particular issue, then those dollars go away. So then we as a board have to decide, are we going to continue is that an important issue that we need to fund on our own, or is that something that now is being taken care of somewhere else? And Sue does a fabulous job at making sure that we, as a county health department, look and assure that the needs are met in the community. And if they are, then Sue looks at it and says, well, we don't have to provide that anymore. So sometimes what might happen is the person who was hired to administer, or the person who was hired to do that job to help the community, that job goes away because we're no longer doing that service, because that is being done out in the community. And I know the amount of time that Sue has put in, and I know the amount of time that previous Executive Director John Cicero put in at looking at everything and making sure that we are doing what we need to do so that the rest of the health department can run as it needs to. So unfortunately, that is the way it is, but it's like when you're hired for a grant-specific job, it's nearly like being hired as a consultant, that you have that job for the duration of that grant, and when that grant ends, there's a good possibility your job will end. In many cases, Sue has found that that person has fit a need, and that person gets to continue because she finds, you know, some role for them within the health department that that person stays on. So we're not ever really cutting something because a grant goes away. It has to be looked at to see, can we continue it because the dollars are going away that we get from the state or federal government.
Thank you.
Ms. Judy?
Mr. Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. You know, I started bringing up some of the needs of the board, the health department, from obviously Mrs. Winfrey and I attending Board of Health meetings. And, you know, I think in Will County, we have 700,000 people approximately right now. We have a process where the county executive proposes a budget. The county board and the staff then work on that budget. And to me, I think that our staff has done a great job this year. I think they've been very responsive. I agree with Mrs. Summers that they need to be commended. Last night I attended the Board of Health meeting. I can tell you that the members of the Board of Health are very appreciative of the members of the county board who have listened to the needs in the different areas, and they're very happy and very satisfied with this budget. It's probably the best budget that they've had in a long time. And given the crisis that exists in opioid and so forth, it's, you know, it's great that you, Mr. Executive, and the members of the board have recognized this and have stepped up. So overall, I think there's a process in Will County, and next year, our taxpayers are going to receive a real estate tax bill. But when they look, and believe me, the public understands this, when they look at what the county takes out of that tax bill, and they look at what other governmental units take from that tax bill, people understand that Will County government is very responsive to the citizens. So I think overall, we've done a great job this year.
Thank you. Thank you. Good comments, Don. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Anybody else? Mr. Frizzalone.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sure. Mayor? Brooks? Ogalla? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trainier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel? Ferry? Carlatis? And Mustis. Thank you.
26 affirmative. We are out of public hearing. Please continue, Mr. Frizzalone.
All right, I'm going to go forward with bringing the budget forward, but even though everybody stole my thunder, I do want to thank everybody that participated in the budget process, especially Melissa, Rashawn, and Karen. They could probably do this without me. I can't do this without them. So I want to thank all three of them for helping with that. So first up, we have 17-293, the annual budget and appropriation ordinance for the County of Will, State of Illinois for the fiscal period beginning December 1, 2017 and ending November 30th, 2018, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Dollinger. Any questions? Any questions? Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Okay, sure. Mayor? Brooks? Ogalla? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trainier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel? Ferry? Carlatis? And Mustis. Thank you.
26 affirmative. 17-293 has passed. Mr. Frizzalone.
We'll go forward now. All of our tax levy votes. Our tax rate for next year is going to be .5933, which is a 2.14% reduction over the previous year. So first up, 17-294, corporate fund levy. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Ferry, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next up, 17-295, FICA levy, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Benefield. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Militello, second by Ms. Dollinger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
17-296, our IMRF levy, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Rice. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Summers, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
17-297, tax levy for the Tort Immunity Fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Singer. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Hart, second by Mr. Balich. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
17-298, tax levy for the Workman's Comp Reserve Fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Moran, second by Mr. Tumanello. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
17-299, tax levy for the TB Sanitarium Fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Ogala. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Malatello. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
17-300, tax levy for the Health Department fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Any questions? Questions? Previous roll call, Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Lawrence Staley Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
17-301, tax levy for the county highway fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
17-302, tax levy for the county bridge fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Moran. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Markham. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
17-303, tax levy for the federal aid matching fund, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Rice and second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Okay, that's our levies. Now we go to 17-304, appropriating additional funds for access increases in mental health and substance abuse services grant, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any question? Previous roll by Ms. Summers, second by Mr. Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
And 17-305, authorizing the county executive to execute necessary documents for delinquent tax program, and I so move.
Movement by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Markham, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Again, I'd like to tell Melissa and Rashawn, you can take a deep breath now. Budget process is over. Happy birthday to Ray. Happy Thanksgiving. And our next meeting is December 5th at 10 a.m.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frizzalone. Next up, Public Works, Transportation, Mr. Gould, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Good morning, Don.
Again, and fellow board members. No items to place on file, several resolutions this morning. The first is 17-306, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for engineering services for 2018. Will County Bridge inspections with Willett Hoffman Associates. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17-307, authorizing approval of supplemental professional services agreement for design engineering services with Globetrotters Engineering Corporation for roadway and appurtenant work on Laraway Road. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Fritz. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Ogala, second by Mr. Benefield. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17-308, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for design engineering services with Willett Hoffman Associates for structure and appurtenant work on Renwick Road over Lily Cache Creek over Mink Creek, County Board Districts 5 and 13. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Ferry. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Summers, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17-309, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for design engineering services with Hutchison Engineering on Briggs Street from I-80 westbound ramps north to Washington Street, County Board District 8. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17-310, improvement by the county under the Illinois Highway Code for Briggs Street from I-80 westbound ramps north to Washington Street, County Board District 8. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Moran. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17311, improvement by the City of Lockport under the Illinois Highway Code for Division Street at Gauga Road, County Board Districts 7 and 9. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Balich. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Resolution 17312, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for design engineering services with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly on Laraway Road from Cedar Road to Stonebridge Drive, County Board District 12. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Hart, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Resolution 17313, improvement by the county under the Illinois Highway Code for Laraway Road from Cedar Road to West Stonebridge Drive, County Board District 12. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Ms. Summers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
At the last committee meeting, we received a bridge report from Jeff Ronaldson, our county engineer. I'm pleased to report that we have 3 bridges we're working on that are in fair condition. Every other bridge in Will County that we control is either in good or in excellent condition.
That's very good news.
And so I want to thank Mr. Ronaldson. And you might notice the first resolution you approved this morning was for bridge inspections. So our bridges here in the county, we're taking a look at, and for right now, they're doing very well.
Thank you, Don.
Our next meeting is December 5th at 9 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Next up, Judicial Committee, Mr. Benefield, Chairman.
Good morning, County Executive, fellow
Morning,
board members.
Darren.
We have 2 resolutions on our committee this month to present to the board. First resolution is 17314, authorizing the county executive to renew professional services contract with Administrative Adjudication Hearing Officer Kelly A. Gandersky, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Benefield, second by Ms. Ogala. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you. And our second resolution is 17-315, authorizing the county executive to renew professional services contract with Administrative Adjudication Hearing Officer Michael F. Carroll, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Benefield, second by Ms. Fritz. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Moran. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. That concludes our report for the month of November. Our next Judicial Committee meeting is scheduled for December 5th at 9 a.m.
Thank you very much, Darren. Next up is Public Health and Safety Committee. Ms. Ogala, Chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. Executive,
Good
fellow board
morning,
members,
Judy.
and members of the public. I don't have any items on my agenda this month, but I did want to discuss a couple things. One was my Public Health and Safety Committee meeting that we had earlier this month. We had 2 speakers. We had Carrie Landau from the FBI and Sherry Schweitzer from Casey Casa. Both of these ladies are involved in the terrible thing that's going on with human trafficking. And so Carrie works closely with rescuing the women who, and a lot of them could be as young as 14 years old, who have been trafficked. And she told us of the different things that happen to these young ladies and what her role is to help them get them back to safety. She also works very closely with our Sheriff's Department, our investigators, to find these ladies. And in addition to that, Sherry Schweitzer from Casey Casa, she has, through a grant, able to train people to recognize the signs of human trafficking, somebody who might be in human trafficking, and what we might be able to do to help them get out. And so she goes around and does some training on that. She is having a training session in January out in Morris. So one of the things that Carrie does is when they get these young girls out of this situation, many times they don't have much on. And so one of the things that we are collecting as a committee is any of your old hoodies, or new hoodies if you'd like to donate, and blankets, and we will be getting them to her. She keeps in the back of her vehicle. and my model. In addition to that, we also have everything that these girls own has been purchased through the dollars that are made through this illegal function. So they take everything from them. So what we're doing is we have these baskets that we're giving to her, and they have things like hairbrushes, shampoo, body lotions, things like that. So if you're out and it's getting into the holiday season and you're out shopping and you find some things, you can bring them in, and the ladies in the county board office are collecting. This is not just now. It's a continuous thing. It's a continuous effort that we'll be doing. I will be providing them with the little baskets that they can fill. We'll be giving them to Carrie so that she can give these girls, when they end up going and getting rescued, they have something. They have, I mean, everybody wants to be able to brush her hair and everything, and she will be able to have this in the back of her van. Her partner always jokes that she has to get all that out so she can get her vest on. So I think it's really something that is important for us to do. So, and I want to thank everyone who helps us out with that. In addition, there's a list of products. No, I can get you a list of products. Okay, that would be something I will get to staff, and then they will put that out. So, thank you, Darren. Additionally, this week we celebrated Veterans Day, and so as far as public health and safety, I mean, our veterans are the ones who provide that for us. I attended a breakfast and found that one of the veterans out in my area, Dr. Don Stevenson, had put together this little book. And one of these poems he wrote I thought was appropriate to read, even though it mentions Memorial Day. We can easily just slip in Veterans Day. It's "What Makes the Flag Wave, Daddy?" A little boy stood at the curb one bright Memorial Day. The color guard went marching by, and the son to his father would say, "What makes the flag wave, Daddy? Those stripes with stars on blue? They make a pretty picture as they wave to me and you." The father thought a moment, and with measured words replied, "It flies for many reasons, sons, for the living and those who died. It flies because we all believe that God gave life to be free, and each of us is blessed by him, so we can all be what we can be. It means we respect one another, for God loves us all the same way. As the colors go by, we salute our flag to show honor and love on this day. The flag flies proudly to remind us all that belief in America is strong, and sometimes we are called upon to fight for the right against the wrong. To fight for American values, it is a right and honorable thing, and without the desire to give it our all, our country can't make freedom ring. So, my son, doesn't the flag look grand as Old Glory goes marching by? The wind makes the flag flutter, but Americans make the flag fly." So I just wanted to thank everybody who's a veteran and the service that you've given and what you've given up to protect all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That concludes what I have to say today, and the next Public Health and Safety Committee meeting is scheduled for December 7th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Vanna White, for helping out.
You did a
Next
fabulous
up,
job, dear.
Legislative and Policy Committee. Ms. Hart, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Morning, Suzanne.
Thank you, Executive Walsh and fellow county board members. Okay, please bear with me. I'm kind of getting over this horrific chest cold here. We were able to have a lot of our departments come in, our department heads, and go over our priorities for 2018. So I want to thank everyone who took their morning out. It was a nice, long, productive meeting. We're getting that all together as we speak, and I will be able to, with Reagan Freitag, and in the next month, we'll get that wrapped up and put back into committee, and hopefully put in for board approval next month, as well as I'll be working with Nick Palmer and Reagan, and we will go start with our federal agenda as well. So thank you, everyone who participated in that. Veto session, we know that the 851 that came in, the property tax freeze, didn't get anywhere, wasn't called Senate, it failed. It was kind of more of a dog and pony show, but it kind of put everybody at edge of what we're doing. Thank you Finance Chair Frizzlon for being on guard, because no one knew what this was going to happen. We've seen what the state has done to us numerous times, so we had to be all ready. I also want to add, we had Randy Holcren, Congressman Holcren, come out was it 2 weeks ago, and did a tour of the sheriff facility. If anyone to know, Congressman Holcren has been one of many on both sides of the aisle who has championed the municipal bonds tax exempt. And when going down to Washington, he has asked, can I see the projects that you're actually utilizing this program and do? So a bunch of us were able to go and talk to him and as well discuss about what we're doing with our Tiger Grant and ask him as well to write a letter. Other than that, as I'm a little shaky, because I want to say this without completely breaking up, as you were talking about Veterans Day, on the 27th, my daughter leaves for the Navy, so woohoo! We'll be able to celebrate. You can tell I'm okay with it, right? Okay, thank you, everyone. Our next meeting will be on December 12th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Best of luck to your daughter. Next up, Capital Improvements Committee, Mr. Tumanello, Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Today we have 3 items on our agenda, hopefully that we'll be authorizing you to negotiate. First one is item number 17-316, authorizing the Will County Executive to amend the contract with White & Company for professional architectural and engineering services for the new Will County Courthouse project, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Tumanello, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next on the agenda is 17-317, authorizing the Will County Executive to amend contract with Stronsland, DeYoung, and Priebus for professional architectural and engineering services for the new equipment and specialized vehicle storage building at the Will County Public Safety Complex, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Tumanello, second by Mr. Benefield. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Ogala, second by Mr. Ballage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
And before I get on to the third item, I do want to thank Lana from the County Board Office as well as Mr. Tack from the Executive's Office for finding some additional dollars and helping us lower this contract down from what we had originally thought it was going to be. 17-318, authorizing the Will County Executive to amend the existing contract with Mid-America Towers Incorporated for the underground conduit rerouting and hardware necessary for the new emergency communications radio tower, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Tumanello, second by Ms. Fritz. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Mr. Markham. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
Our next capital improvement meeting is scheduled for November 21st at 11 a.m., and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ray. Next up, Executive Committee, Mr. Mustis, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Good morning, Jim.
County Board. First item on my agenda today is to place on file the report of the Workforce Center Services Analysis Report from July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, and I'll make a motion to place the report on file.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, I'll make a motion to go into public hearing regarding proposed amendments for the consortium action plan submitted to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I'll move to go into public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sure. Mayor? Yes. Brooks? Yes. Ogala? Yes. Summers? Yes. Singer? Yes. Moran? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris? Yes. Trenier? Yes. Benefield? Yes. Fritz? Gould? Yes. Militello? Yes. Ballage? Yes. Frizzlone? Yes. Winfrey? Yes. Parker? Yes. Staley Ferry? Yes. Dollinger? Yes. Markham? Yes. Hart? Yes. Tumanello? Yes. Weigel? Yes. Ferry? Yes. Colitis? Yes. And Mustis.
Yes.
26 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Mr. Mustis.
here once again. I think it's the second time around. This really does, deals with the CDBG grants, I believe. I don't know if Mr. Pullman's here or if someone from the Land Use Department would like to go and basically give us an outline what
Tim Mack
this
is here.
entails. Tim is here?
Yes.
Okay, Tim. Go on down.
Down to the podium, Tim, please.
Good morning, Executive Walsh and County
Good
Board
morning.
members.
Good morning, Tim.
As you're aware, in 2016, the county entered into a consortium agreement with the City of Joliet and Village of Bolingbrook to manage HUD Home Program funds for our jurisdiction. As the lead entity in this agreement, the County Board is required to authorize any substantial changes made to approved projects for this program. In this case, the City of Joliet is requesting to move $227,000 and $227,290 from a new construction project to an existing very successful down payment assistance program for buyers of homes interested in purchasing in the city. As part of the process, notice to accept public comment has been open for the last 30 days and will conclude with today's meeting, at the conclusion of which we are asking the board for approval of the city's request. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Mack?
I have a question.
Mr. Brooks?
Tim, that's only in the city of Joliet. That's not township, unincorporated. That's just for the city. Is that correct?
That is correct. That
Okay.
is correct.
All right. That leaves me out. Thank you.
Ms. Winfrey?
I'll just say thank you. I appreciate this. I think it's important for us as a city, which is a part of the county, to support people being able to move into homes to get the down payments. That's better for all of us if those are personally owned rather than rental property. So I would support that.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone from the general public wish to speak? Ask a question? Did you receive any comments as been open for 30 days?
We have received no comments as of today.
No comments? Anyone else wish the floor? Mr. Mustis?
Executive, I'll make a motion to come out of public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Sure. Mayor? Brooks? O'Gala? Summers? Singer? Moran? Yes. I was wondering why you said no. Okay, I got you. Okay, we have Moran, Rice, Harris, Trainier, Benefield, Fritz, Gould, Militello, Balich, Frizzalone, Winfrey,
Yes.
Parker, Staley Ferry, Dollinger, Markham, Hart, Tumanello, Weigel, Ferry, Corlitis, and Mustis. Thank you.
26 affirmative. Public hearing has closed. Mr. Mustis?
17-282, substantial amendment of the 5-year action plan for the reallocation of City of Joliet Home Program grant funds, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Winfrey. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Staley Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Okay, next we have 17-319, authorizing the county executive to bind insurance coverage and execute contracts, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution.
Corey, would you like to be a yes on this issue?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, I have Resolution 17-320, authorizing professional services contract with Baxter and Woodman Engineering Services, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Tumanello and second by Ms. Fritz. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, I have Resolution 17321, authorizing renewal of consultant agreement with Mac Communication, Inc., and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, seconded by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Melatello, second by Mr. Balich. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, you have 17322, authorizing renewal of state lobbying services agreement with Curry and Associates, LLC, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Summers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, Resolution 17323, authorizing renewal of contract with federal lobbyist firm of Smith, Dawson, and Andrews, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Hart. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier and second by Mr. Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, 17324, authorizing renewal of contract with Lois Mayer, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Moran, second by Ms. Summers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, we have Resolution 17325, authorizing renewal of agreement with Will County CED, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, we have Resolution
Excuse me. Okay, Ms. Frisch. Thank you. Okay, Jim, I'm sorry.
All right. Next, we have Resolution 17326, awarding bid for grounds care snow removal at the Public Safety Complex, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, seconded by Mr. Balich. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Melatello, seconded by Ms. Ogala. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, we have 17327, awarding bid for office cleaning at the Public Safety Building, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, we have Resolution 17328, awarding bid for gasoline and diesel fuel, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Parker. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. John Gould and Mr. Tumanello, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. Did Ms. Frisk get a,
I got it.
got a yes?
So
Okay.
next, we have Resolution 17329, awarding contract for asbestos abatement for Sheriff's Laraway and State's Attorney's Facility, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Rice. Any question? Any question? Previous roll by Mr. Markham, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, we have Resolution 17330, renewing contract for security guard services at Sunny Hill and the probation and workforce services, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Dollinger. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Melatello, second by Mr. Balich. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, we have Resolution 17331, renewing contracts for refuse and recycling collection for various county buildings, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Summers. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Markham. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, we have Resolution 17332, authorizing contract with Farrah Consulting Group for professional services with workforce and investment, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, seconded by Ms. Winfrey. Any questions? Question, Ms. Fritz?
I have several issues with this item. The first one, and this is nothing against Pat Farrow specifically, just the concept in general. I find it questionable that someone is going to retire from their employment from the county and then turn right around and get essentially a no-bid contract to be a consultant using their insider knowledge to have a leg up on the competition. I find that to be questionable at best. Now, it says they did interview several companies and they gave proposals, but those were not included with our packet, so we didn't get to see what those proposals were. That's the other problem I have with it. And there's a conflict between the resolution itself and the contract, because the resolution says $77,400, but the contract actually says there could be more fees over and above that, and I'll let you know what they're going to be, which I don't think is appropriate as well.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, and during caucus, we had the state's attorney address this, so I'm going to make the discrepancy between the contract and the resolution, and so I'm going to motion to table this until next month, and we have more opportunity to take a look at it.
Table and remove it.
Been moved by Mr. Mayor, table. Second by Ms. Hart. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sure. Mayor?
Yes.
Brooks?
No.
Ogala? Summers? No. Singer? Yes. Moran? No. Rice? Yes. Harris?
No.
Trainier?
No.
Benefield?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Militello?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Frizzalone?
Yes.
Winfrey?
No.
Parker?
Yes.
Staley Ferry?
No.
Dollinger?
Yes.
Markham?
No.
Hart?
Yes.
Tominello?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Ferry?
No.
Colatis? And Mustis.
Yes.
Okay.
Affirmative, 9 negative.
17 affirmative. Tabling motion has been approved. Continue, Mr. Mustis.
Yeah, I do actually have a couple things in this, in regard to, not the specific, just in general, if I can address the state's attorney's office on this. A couple things. One is, I'm not aware of any existing policy that within the county, or there's anything that would be in state statutes that would necessarily disqualify a person from retiring and coming right back as a consultant, even though I think that IMRF has rules on this, which we probably need to check. That would be more for the person who's the annuitant of the IMRF. Because I do think they, even though their requirements are by the hour, if this is going to restrict the hours that somebody can actually put in if they're collecting an IMRF pension and coming right back. So I do think that could be addressed in IMRF. We need to be fully informed. And then I will say to this county board whether there should be a policy that many units of government do have, and that is you cannot resign and come right back as a contracted person, that there has to be a 12-month, whatever, they'll come up with some number. It could be 12 months, 24 months, that they're not eligible to come back. And so you need to talk about whether we need to address a policy of that nature, which would go to the executive committee, because that's the personnel committee. So I do want to give that just so people can think about it. And Mary, you know, this idea that the resolution and the contract are not in sync, because the contract allows for additional money to be spent to the consultant, additional compensation, and the resolution does not. Is that basically it? So,
Had,
I don't quite know why this came down party lines, but maybe people just didn't have an understanding that we need to get some clarification here. Maybe should have made that a little clearer. This is really just to get clarification, and whether you think it's really a good policy to do this, So that's all I wanted to say on that matter. So.
Ms. Trainier?
I actually brought this issue up in committee, and I was told that Ms. Farrow was not a county employee and was not collecting a pension from IMRF. Now, maybe I didn't have the experts in there to give me the right
I mean, I don't
answer.
know. I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I was told no. And my only hesitancy was, Ms. Fritz just brought this up, I didn't see the discrepancy anywhere in the salary line. Otherwise, I probably would have voted yes, because I didn't see anything here.
It wasn't in the salary line, it was the additionals at the bottom of the contract. It talked about additional funds being able to do.
Well, that comes up a lot, though, with, I think, a number of contracts that we approve. There's like a base amount, and then there's like a category for incidentals, I guess, if you will, other things that might come up along the way. But my question, the concern about like seeing the other bid packages and stuff, I mean, we just approved the MAC communication thing. I've never seen a big bid package go out for MAC communication.
Well, we didn't go out for bid this time.
But I mean, I don't know that we ever have,
Well,
have
I
we?
didn't go, but I do think we're going to start reviewing. Just so everyone knows, I suggested in the Republican caucus this morning that all the contracts be reviewed, and we review their scope. We'll start this in June, and whether we think we need to continue with certain consultants, whether we want to bring something in-house, whether we want to redefine the scope. Because very often, people who have been with us for a while, the scope has changed of what they do. So we are going to fully vet the consultants in the upcoming year, just so you know that.
Well, I definitely want to see some.
But, I could say the
bid
same thing
packages,
about
too.
Smith, Dawson, and Andrew. I could say the
Right.
same thing about Curry. You
Right.
want to single out one consultant, I can say,
Right.
it would be all of them.
Agree.
So.
Agree, I don't disagree.
The
Like I
other,
said.
the other thing that I guess, Mary, I need to ask is that a single, and this, we went under some real scrutiny from the IRS, I think it was last year, about who's an employee and who's an independent contractor. And when it came to single person consultants, IRS pretty much told us they're employees.
Well, I
So
don't
I'm
think
just
it's
wondering if that
just,
applies with, not only with Pat Farah, but like we have Lois as a single. But
Well,
I
the-
think she, I think, already went through the scrutiny, so I think she's okay.
there are a variety of factors that the
Yeah.
IRS looks at. It's not just whether they are a single person consulting organization, but it also includes whether or not they have other clients. Do they work at the county using county resources, or do they have their own separate independent offices
okay.
and use their own resources? So there's a lot of things, and Ms. Farah has organized her own, created her own consulting firm.
you took a look at that,
I did look a little bit last night. I know she has her own LinkedIn account where she advertises for other clients. So I don't think that would be a problem, the IRS. I can look into it more for you. I also don't think, and I can look into this further, but I don't think it would be an IMRF problem because this contract is for the consulting group. It is not for Pat Farah as an individual.
So the other thing I need to ask is that, and I'll put this on a future executive committee agenda. We need to know, what the template is and what we need to make sure that we're complying with IRS, or whether it's, and that's part of, I think, the difficulty today is that we just don't have all the information. It's not to really stop anything outside of whether you just oppose somebody coming right back as a consultant, but so you'll do that, Mary, and you'll bring all that information back to us.
I will make sure you have all the information.
All right, thank you. Okay. Okay, where am I?
We're at 17,333.
Okay. 17,333, appropriating funds for the payment of the county engineer's salary. I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Benefield. Okay. No.
Oh, you need a good roll. Yeah.
Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mayor? That's true, yes. Yes.
Brooks?
What is this one from?
This is
For
for Jeff.
county engineer.
17333, resolution.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yeah.
Ogala? Summers? Singer? Moran? Rice? Harris? Trainier? Benefield? Fritz? Gould? Militello? Balich? Frizzalone? Winfrey? Parker? Staley Ferry? Dollinger? Markham? Hart? Tumanello? Weigel? Ferry? Corlitis? And Mustis.
Yes.
Thank you.
26 affirmative, that motion is carried.
Next, we have 17,334, extension of terms of the Board of Review, and I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Parker. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Moran, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, I have 17,335, new hires for the County Executive's Office, Laraway Communications Center. I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Frizzalone. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
And I might just make a note on this last resolution that I think pretty much this is the last task that had to be done to complete consolidation of the dispatch centers. So I guess this makes us consolidated, correct? Mr. Palmer, are we all consolidated now?
Yeah.
Yep, we're done, right?
It's moving.
It's moving, okay. All right. And I might point out to the executive's office, they put a lot of work into this. It was not always the most smoothest process, a lot of bumps, and along the way, a lot of voices being raised and concerns being raised. So I guess, Nick, I don't commend you very often, but I'll do it this time. How's that? Good job. Yeah, so next executive committee meeting will be December 7th, 2017. Next, I have the appointments by the county executive, and I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Staley Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
Mr. Executive, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Time for public opinion or public comment. Public comment. Yeah, I have one person, Phil Adair. Phil Adair.
Here he is.
Yep.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Executive Walsh, County Board members, Executive Committee, Administration. My name is Phil Adair, and I live in New Lenox Township. And I'm here today to request your help in resolving some issues that I have been ongoing with my next door neighbor in regards to his building of an industrial building next to me. I put together, not enough for every board member, but I'd like for you to review this a little bit. It gives you an oversight as to, sure, is that one of them?
I just finished War and Peace, so
Yeah. Well, this has been an ongoing situation, and I'm here today again to request your help in resolving this problem because it has ballooned to basically out of control by my next door neighbor who has been harassing and retaliating against me for initiating an initial complaint that he started a project with the land use for a industrial building on his site. So what I gave you, again, it gives you sort of an idea how it started, in that what was a peaceful arrangement between myself and my neighbor, because I've been living there at that address for 45 years. And this gentleman purchased the home next door to me about 7 to 8 years ago because he had a son, and he was raised in the building behind him where his mother lives now. So he bought that house next to me so that his mother could give support in raising his son. Things were going along very well because I had cut his grass for many years, plowed his snow, cut down trees and everything. And as I said, him and his brother were about the same age as my two sons, and they played, in fact, in my backyard for many years. So what happened was, as you see in the pictures, the gentleman decided that he wanted to build an industrial building. And when he did that, he moved his facility that the equipment that he was renting, a facility in Cherry Hills, and decided that he would locate all that equipment on his driveway. So this was taking place, and I said to him, I said, hey, I went over there after a while, and I said, hey, this can't go on. And we sort of got in a little bit of an argument, and I asked him to move it, and he said he wasn't going to move it because he moved it from Cherry Hill to here. And so I said to him, I said, well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to file a complaint with the county because this can't happen. As you see in those photographs, there's gasoline cans and everything, all kinds of industrial equipment, which should be unsafe for the neighborhood. So I got the county involved. They came out and they made him remove that material. But as you see in the photograph, he had a 40-foot container that he had stored some of his other equipment. And so they mentioned to him, and I didn't even know this, that container was too big and it crossed the property lines, and that he would have to remove that container or reposition it. Well, what he did was he got it repositioned, and he put it in his front yard. And that sat there in the front yard for 9 months until he finished his industrial building. So all during the process, naturally I was a little upset about the whole thing because I was told by land use that, no, I told him that all that equipment was going to be moved back into this building and he was going to run his business out of it. And they told me that, no, if that happens, you contact us and we'll shut him down. Well, as it turned out, and through the whole process, that information was proved false, and they said that as an individual, he's allowed to build this building so big and run his business out of there. So there's stipulations in running a business out of there that say that he is only allowed 1,800 square feet. Well, when he started this project, he got one permit to modify his existing attached garage, and that allowed him to put that 40-foot container in that yard. Well, he didn't put any of that other equipment in there, and from his garage, and it was just that equipment that you see stored. So they allowed, once he got the equipment, he then turned around and applied for a permit to build that building. And so that commenced. He finished that building about first of the year, and he had a shed that was behind that building. And I said to the county, I said, hey, he's way over his limit. He's only allowed 1,800. He had that shed, he had the attached garage. So they told him that he had to demolish the shed, which during the process he was notified. He had to sign an affidavit saying that he had to remove this shed, but when we had a hearing in January, he said he didn't know anything about it. Well, again, so then he started on the process in March of, after the garage was done, the demolish of the other shed. He then started on the remodeling of his existing attached garage. Well, there again was a violation that the county didn't abide by, because according to the ordinances, you have 6 months on a application, and if you don't commence any kind of work, the permit is pulled. Well, they did nothing, and he didn't finish that until just about the expiration of 1 year from the time he applied for that permit. So all during this, the gentleman he was really retaliating against me for turning in the initial complaint. He filed a complaint with the health department saying that I had depositing septic into the ditch. The health department came out, they couldn't find anything. Then other retaliations took place throughout the year. He went on Facebook and slandered me. I'm on the school board in New Lenox, so he slandered me in that, saying things about me. I don't go on Facebook, but when I heard from neighbors and things like that, they related to me. So then he started this harassment in parking his vehicles in front of my house. You see photographs there. And again, as the ordinance states, that he's only allowed 2 commercial vehicles. And as you see in some of my emails, I questioned the county on this, and that he has, in fact, more than 2. He has 3 right now, plus 1 in front of my house that I feel is parked illegally also, because that's also another commercial vehicle. So I'm not getting any action from land use, as you see in my last email. And so I'm here today because, again, I can't take this harassment forever. What I'm trying to do, the lady that came, started at the meeting and talked about suicide prevention, well, my heart goes out to her, because my daughter-in-law down near Indy committed suicide also. And for the last year and a half, my wife and I have been going down to Indy to help my son with his 3 rugrats and helping him raise them. So she goes down there 2-3 weeks at a time, then comes back, recuperates, goes back down there. So we finally said, we can't go on like this forever. We'll have to put the house up for sale. And so I'm trying to put the house up for sale, but I can't hardly sell a house when he got his vehicles parked in front of my house that I believe are illegal. One could be considered maybe legal because it's a regular vehicle, but he has another commercial vehicle, which makes it 4. So he's trying to skirt the intent of the ordinances where you're allowed 2 vehicles. And it was finally resolved with land use that the one vehicle that land use said, no, it's not a commercial vehicle. Well, I went to the state of Illinois website, and they listed that a Class D plate is a commercial vehicle. So from what I hear from Mr. Weigel, who's on the land use, and I have to thank Mr. Weigel for assisting me throughout this endeavor, and he relayed to me that the land use now has said that Class D is a commercial plate. So he's in violation right now of 3 vehicles in his driveway plus 1 in front of my house. So I'd like some help in resolution, because through this harassment, he has, again, filed bogus complaints against me. One just recently, back in September, as I was trying to put the house up for sale, he filed with land use saying that I needed a building permit to repair a shed door. And they came out and they said, as you see in the emails, there's no violation here. But again, I need your help.
Let's bring this to a close.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mr. Walsh, for your patience.
Yeah, that's
but, you know, again, if people don't know the full story of what's going on, you can't understand it. So if I only gave you bits and pieces, you don't know the whole thing. And I think you need to know the story. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate you giving us the whole story. Mr. Weigel, do you have any comment?
We are revising our ordinances concerning the size of accessory buildings. We're reducing those from 1,800 to 1,500 square feet for R3 through R6, and even smaller for R4, R5, and R6. And also we're defining commercial vehicles, and we're going to keep the limit of 2 in that regard. We are looking at that more closely. Some of the things that he's brought up we're going to be revising. Maybe the land use staff would like to make a comment concerning their compliance with
Brian or David, either one, or Michael? We're going a little overboard here on this, but
Good morning, Executive Walsh, members of the County Board. This matter has been taking place for approximately a year. Land Use Department has been to the site numerous times. There's also been an official State's Attorney's Office opinion written on this matter. Right now, Mr. Gorski's property is in compliance. The structure that was built complied with all zoning codes and building codes. The vehicles parked in the driveway are in compliance. That has also been reviewed by the State's Attorney's Office. As we have told Mr. Adair numerous times, the Land Use Department does not have authority or jurisdiction over the public right-of-way. If his neighbor parks vehicles within the public right-of-way, he needs to take his complaints to the Highway Commissioner to be addressed.
Okay. Okay. Well, Mr. Adair, thank you for bringing that forward.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Walsh, and again, with the changes in with the Class D, that the land use was in error as to what the state requirement was for a Class D plate is a commercial plate, and I feel that they were wrong. I don't care what they say, that what they said to me, they are wrong in so many interpretations. As you see in my report, I also filed a FOIA during this whole time, and you can see the discrepancies of what the county has said in the FOIA as opposed to what the regulations are. And I tried to get some clarification from them, and they told me they're not obligated to reply to anything in a FOIA in question. And I think that needs to be addressed, because what good is a FOIA if you get information and you can't get any reply? What do you do with it? Use it as wallpaper? So thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you, County Board. I appreciate it. Have a nice holiday season.
Thank you, Mr. Adair. Anyone else from the public wish to comment? Anyone else? Anybody else wants public comment? Moving on. Comments by county board members. Mr. Balich.
Land Use Committee, and about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I was on a ad hoc committee to redo the building code ordinances, and that whole process was not done very well at all. I would say terribly. The result of that is I submitted a whole series of stuff that I got off of numerous cities and counties that exclude the responsibility of getting a permit to put a door in or a window or different items. And I included, because it was funny, all the different places that didn't require those things used the exact same verbiage. So that meant somebody that was in some type of position went out and researched it and came up with those things that should be exempt from a building code permit. And so that's why there were so many of them. There's a lot of them that our land use department says you don't need a permit for, but then there's a bunch that they do. So we're going to be addressing that in the future. It's on the agenda for the next meeting, and we probably won't get to it because we're just finishing up with the zoning ordinances. But I wanted to make sure that the board knows that, in my opinion, this committee that's addressing the zoning code ordinances is actually doing an excellent job. We're addressing everything. There's a lot of input. It's very transparent. So Brian and David, they're doing a great job of getting that done. So on one side, I'm saying they did a terrible job, which they did on the first one, and the second one, they're doing a good job. And that needs to be stated.
Thank you, Mr. Balich. Any other county board members want the floor? Any other county board members? Next up is our majority leader, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, Executive Walsh. And I just want to thank Darren for his impersonation of Vanna White today. I think that was really well done, and I'm not sure with all the gaffes that we had going on in the board today, whether we're just all overworked or there's something in the water. But this has been a real hard-working month. I mean, with the budget here, so many people have done such Herculean work. It's amazing. So again, thank you to Rashawn and Melissa and Karen for all their hard work, and Mike and the committee. But this isn't done just by that leadership. It's done by the department heads, all the staff that the department heads send out to go get information for them, all the work that's been done throughout the county. So I want to thank folks for all their hard work. And Ms. Summers, thank you for bringing the issue of the mental health and for us to take a looking at September as suicide prevention. I don't think there's probably one of us sitting here that hasn't been touched by someone that has had either mental health issues or have been involved in some suicide related activities. And it's especially important, I think, with our veterans, remembering Veterans Day here in the way we did, because veterans and suicide, it unfortunately goes hand in hand in some cases with PTSD and a number of the other things that are going on. And so thank you very much for bringing that forward, and I'm sorry about your loss, but sometimes where there's a loss, there is a gain for a lot of other folks. So thank you for that and your awareness there. Ray's birthday here, it's celebrated. We've started, you know, one of the things that when we came up with our mission, one of it was setting vision, but also setting policy. And I think one of the policies that we're setting here is now that you have to bring your own donuts for your birthday. Ray did that for us. Thank you very much. We appreciate those in the office over there. And for my running mate and good friend Suzanne, I've known Julia since she was a very small child. She's babysat my daughter, and it is with a heavy heart that we say, thank you, Julia, and to the Hart family for actually going and putting themselves out for this country, because I don't think there's anything more important than for someone to volunteer their time. And in our service, we pay them, but really we don't pay them for all the stuff that they do. So it really is a volunteer to get in there and take and defend our Constitution the way that our veterans and all have throughout all these years. And as we enter into this Thanksgiving holiday season, a happy Thanksgiving to all my caucus members on both sides of the aisle and to their families. We've had a lot of ups and downs, not just on the board here, but within all our families this past year. And we do have to sit down and really thank God for what we have available and the things that we have in this country. So, Mr. Executive, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. And with that, I wish you adieu.
Next up, our Minority Leader, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Still morning. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your comments as well. I do appreciate that, and thank you very much. And let me begin also with the proclamation this morning. Don Moran read the proclamation for the Spanish Centers that's in my district. I really appreciate that and their recognition. Also, Lori Summers for bringing to our attention the awareness of suicide. I think it's very brave for a mom to come before a governmental body and speak how she feels. So thank you for coming this morning, and thank you for that awareness. Let me also continue to thank you, as has been resonated across this board, with all the work that's been done on the budget process. Many of you all know the budget process began in June. The county executive presented to us in October, and we voted in November. So that's 6 months of us working with it. The staff, executive, and the county board staff work very hard. Many of us go to meetings throughout the month, but a lot of the accolades must go to them. They do a lot of the homework and keep us abreast and bringing us to a resolution on today. So I do thank you for that. And lastly, I said thank you to you, Mr. Mayor, because I think that we all have much to be grateful for Thanksgiving this year, even though we saw tragedies not only in our family, but outside our family and all around this country. For example, on this week, a school shooting in Northern California. We witnessed a shooting at a church in Texas. We witnessed Las Vegas, New York, a truck driving down the path. So there's been many families affected all across this country. And we sit here on today to say thank you once again that we are still intact and we're praying for those around this country. So you all have a happy Thanksgiving. Thank God for our country, what the veterans have done for us, and what you've done on behalf of our constituents, Will County. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Pastor Brooks. Next up, County Board Speaker, Mr. Mustis.
I could almost say good afternoon, right? 2 more minutes, yes. Yeah. You know, not to be kind of repetitive here, but I do want to thank all those who worked on the budget. Mr. Executive, appreciate all the work you've did on the budget, and Karen and Roshana and Melissa, thank you. Mike, I know you put in a lot of time also, so I thank you all for doing yeoman's job in really difficult task. Because probably there's 26 members here, we probably could give you 26 opinions on this, on the budget. So thank you for all your hard work. You know, Thanksgiving has been always been one of my favorite holidays, maybe the favorite holiday. And it's because it's just maybe giving some reflection, not only for the past year, or for the blessings you really have, for your families, for your friends, for people who go out like our service people who defend this country. It really gives us time it's always given me time to really sit and reflect. You know, I can tell you some personal stories where on Thanksgivings I felt almost miracles happen within my family. So I want to say thank you to all of you. I know I say that pretty routinely, but I truly am thankful for your efforts and what you do here and the differences you make within your own local communities and the Will County community. So everyone, Mr. Executive, Nick, all you up there, Jim, you and your family, Nancy, is Nancy still here? She leave? I don't know. To everyone, you and your families have a blessed Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mustis. Seeing no other business to be brought forward, I wish also to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving, and we got a lot to give thanks for. So as families get together on Thursday. So be safe over the holidays if you're doing any driving or whatever. So anyway, with that, we'll stand on recess until Thursday, December 21 at 9:30.